The fell green skies above Tanayan jungle tore open like wounded flesh. Reality itself screamed as something impossible forced its way through the barrier between dimensions, not through a portal summoned by warlock rituals or demon magic, but through sheer, relentless will that defied the cosmic laws governing Azeroth. The breach burned with hellfire that wasn't feel energy, wasn't arcane corruption, wasn't anything the mages of Dalaran had catalogued in 10,000 years of study. On the crumbling ramparts of Hellfire Citadel, Warchief Thrall lowered his doomhammer, eyes widening as green lightning crackled around him. "Spirits of earth and sky," he breathed, making a warding gesture. "What new corruption is this?" The breach pulsed once, twice, then vomited forth a figure wreathed in chains and flames. He fell through the toxic air, no wings to slow his descent, no magic cushioning his inevitable impact. Just a man on a motorcycle that burned with fire that made feel flames look like candlelight. The bike's engine roared louder than a dragon's fury, its wheels trailing hellfire as it somehow found purchase in empty air. The rider hit the ground outside the citadel walls. The impact crater spread outward in a perfect circle, obliterating demons and feel-corrupted orcs alike. When the dust settled, a figure stood in the center, leather jacket smoking, chains wrapped around his torso catching the diseased sunlight. His head was a burning skull, flames dancing in empty eye sockets that seemed to pierce through to a person's very soul. Thrall leapt from the rampart, earth rising to cushion his landing as he approached this new arrival. Horde warriors formed up behind him, axes and hammers ready, though more than one trembled at the sight of that flaming skull. "Identify yourself," the warchief commanded, doomhammer crackling with shamanic power. "By whose authority do you enter Draenor?" The flames around the skull flickered and died, revealing a human face beneath, pale skin stretched over sharp features, eyes that glowed with inner fire. The man looked around at the blasted hellscape of Tanan jungle, the corrupted landscape, the fell green sky. "Yo," Ghost Rider said, his voice flat and conversational. "This Earth? Everything looks really messed up." Thrall's jaw tightened. "You stand upon Draenor, home world of the Orcish people, now scarred by the Burning Legion's corruption. I ask again, who are you and what is your purpose here?" Ghost Rider scratched his head, looking at his motorcycle with mild concern. "I'm Johnny Blaze. Well, Ghost Rider when the other guy's in control. Just a spirit of vengeance trying to track down some demons." He kicked the bike's stand down. "Followed them through some weird portal. Guess it led here." Before Thrall could respond, a massive roar split the air. From the gates of Hellfire Citadel emerged Archimonde the Defiler, one of the Burning Legion's most powerful commanders. The Eredar Lord stood 30 feet tall, his body corded with demonic muscle, fell runes blazing across his skin. Lesser demons prostrated themselves before him, the very ground cracking under his weight. "More mortal insects!" Archimonde's voice boomed across the battlefield, each word hitting like a physical blow. "You dare defile this world with your presence? I am Archimonde, Hand of Sargeras, destroyer of civilizations. Your world of Azeroth burned at my touch. This pathetic human will be crushed beneath my..." Ghost Rider started walking toward the Demon Lord, hands in his jacket pockets. "Yeah, I'm gonna need you to stop right there." Archimonde's eyes blazed with fell fire. "You dare interrupt!" Look, Ghost Rider said, stopping about 20 feet from the towering Eridar. I've had a long day. I'm in the wrong dimension, and you're clearly one of the demons I was chasing. So we can do this easy, or we can do it the fun way. The Demon Lord threw back his head and laughed, the sound causing blood to trickle from the ears of nearby orcs. Fun. I will show you the meaning of suffering, insect. He raised a clawed hand, and fell fire gathered in his palm, enough destructive energy to level a city. Witness the power of the Legion! The blast engulfed Ghost Rider completely, a pillar of green flame that reached into the sky, burning hot enough to turn stone to slag. It continued for 10 seconds, 15. The demon pouring more and more power into the attack until the ground around the impact zone had melted into glass. When Archimonde finally lowered his hand, breathing heavily from the exertion, the fell flames died away. Ghost Rider stood exactly where he'd been, leather jacket unmarked, not even a scorch mark on his jeans. He looked down at himself, then back up at the demon. That tickled. Archimonde's eyes widened in something that might have been fear. Impossible. Nothing mortal can withstand. His skull erupted in flames. The transformation was instant, flesh burning away to reveal the flaming skull beneath, chains igniting and whipping free from his jacket. The temperature spiked, but this wasn't feel fire, or dragon fire, or even the flames of the Firelands. This was something older, something primal. Time to pay for your sins, Ghost Rider said, his voice now carrying an echo like 1,000 screaming souls. He looked directly into Archimonde's eyes. The Penance Stare hit the Demon Lord like a battering ram made of divine judgment. Every atrocity committed over 10,000 years of existence, every world burned, every innocent slaughtered, every soul corrupted, it all came flooding back at once. Archimonde the Defiler, who had destroyed countless civilizations, who had laughed at the agony of billions, screamed. The sound was unlike anything Thrall had ever heard. It wasn't the roar of a powerful demon, but the shriek of a being experiencing every moment of suffering it had inflicted, all at once, compressed into a single instant of perfect retribution. Ghost Rider walked forward as the demon collapsed to its knees, still locked in the Penance Stare. When he reached the Eridar Lord, he simply placed one hand on its chest. Guilty. Archimonde the Defiler, Hand of Sargeras, Destroyer of Worlds, exploded. Not in fire or shadow or fell corruption, but in a blast of pure hellfire that consumed him so completely that even his connection to the twisting nether severed. The demon wasn't just destroyed. He was erased. His very essence burned away by the spirit of vengeance's judgment. The flames surrounding Ghost Rider's skull died down. He looked at the crater where Archimonde had been, and sighed. One stare again. Thrall stood frozen, Doomhammer hanging forgotten at his side. Around him, hardened warriors of the Horde who had faced the Legion without flinching were on their knees, some weeping, others making warding signs against evil. Ghost Rider's skull transformed back into his human face. He noticed the stares and scratched his head awkwardly. Sorry about the collateral damage. Demon needed to be dealt with. The war chief found his voice. What manner of being are you? Just a guy who made a deal with a demon, Johnny replied with a shrug. Got cursed to be the spirit of vengeance. Hunt down evil, punish the guilty, that kind of thing. He looked around at the devastated landscape. You guys have a lot of evil here, huh? Before Thrall could answer, a portal of swirling blue energy materialized nearby. Through it stepped Archmage Khadgar, staff blazing with power, flanked by a squad of Kirin Tor battle mages. The elderly wizard's eyes went immediately to the crater where Archimonde had stood, then to Ghost Rider. By all the Titans, Khadgar breathed. The dimensional breach we detected. It brought you? His mage sight activated, attempting to analyze the being before him, but the feedback was immediate and painful. He stumbled back, nose bleeding. Impossible. You register as both living and dead, mortal and eternal, blessed and cursed simultaneously. Ghost Rider nodded. Yeah, I get that a lot. So, which way to Earth? I kinda need to get back. Khadgar and Thrall exchanged glances. The Archmage stepped forward cautiously. I'm afraid you're not on Earth, friend. This is Draenor, and Earth. I have never heard of such a world. You've crossed not just space, but potentially between realities entirely. Johnny's expression fell. Seriously? Man, Mephisto's portals are the worst. Mephisto? Khadgar inquired, pulling out a journal and quill that wrote notes automatically. Demon Lord. Real bastard. He's the one who cursed me, and he's been opening portals to other dimensions, letting demons through to cause chaos. Ghost Rider looked around at the corrupted landscape. Guess he opened one here too. Thrall lowered Doomhammer completely, though he remained wary. If you truly hunt demons, then perhaps the spirits have brought you here for a reason. The Burning Legion has corrupted this world beyond recognition. Even now, we struggle to hold them back. The Burning Legion? Johnny asked. An army of demons spanning countless worlds, Khadgar explained. They seek to unmake all of creation, burning entire planets in fell fire. We've been fighting them for generations, and they just keep coming. Ghost Rider's eyes flickered with hellfire for a moment. An army of demons, huh? That actually sounds like it might be interesting. A massive explosion rocked the ground. In the distance, more portals were opening, these ones vomiting forth fresh Legion forces. Infernals the size of buildings crashed into the ground, accompanied by swarms of fellbats and doom guards. At the center of the army materialized a pit lord, easily 50 feet tall, wielding a massive glaive that dripped with fell poison. The attack continues, Thrall growled, raising Doomhammer. Mages to me! We must hold the line! Ghost Rider watched the approaching demon army with mild interest. His head ignited once more, the transformation instant. He climbed onto his motorcycle, and the engine roared to life with a sound that made the portals flicker. I got this, he said simply. The motorcycle tore across the corrupted earth, leaving a trail of hellfire in its wake. Ghost Rider leaned forward as the first wave of demons reached him, and his chain whipped out. The weapon extended impossibly far, wrapping around a dozen demons at once. When he yanked it back, they didn't just die, they burned, souls consumed by hellfire in seconds. He rode straight at the pit lord, who swung its massive glaive down to crush this tiny nuisance. Ghost Rider didn't dodge. He drove directly through the weapon, shattering the fell-forged blade into fragments, then up the demon's arm, across its shoulder, and leaped off the bike at the apex of the jump. Penance Stare, Ghost Rider said, grabbing the pit lord's face with both hands. The demon lord's roar of defiance became a howl of agony as every evil deed, every innocent killed, every world ravaged, played back through its consciousness at once. Ghost Rider released his grip, and the Pit Lord collapsed, its body already beginning to burn from the inside out. He landed back on his motorcycle, which had impossibly caught air and was waiting for him. The rest of the Legion forces hesitated, their mindless aggression giving way to something approaching fear. Ghost Rider revved his engine. Next! The demons broke and ran. An army of the Burning Legion, forces that had conquered countless worlds, fled before a single rider on a burning motorcycle. Ghost Rider chased them down methodically, his chain whipping out again and again. Each strike judging and executing the guilty. In less than 5 minutes, the entire assault force had been annihilated. Ghost Rider rode back to where Thrall and Khadgar stood, both mages and warriors watching with expressions of pure shock. He came to a stop, and his flaming skull transformed back to human features once more. "You guys have a bathroom around here? And maybe something to eat? I'm starving." In the days that followed, word of the Burning Rider spread across both Draenor and Azeroth. Mages and shaman debated his nature. Theologians argued about whether he was sent by the light or something else entirely. And common folk began to whisper about a new champion who could destroy demons with a glance. Ghost Rider, for his part, just wanted to go home. Khadgar had transported him through a portal to Dalaran, the floating city of mages, where the greatest magical minds on Azeroth attempted to understand the dimensional breach that had brought him here. Johnny sat in a conjured chair, while wizards and arcanists pointed various detection spells at him, most of which fizzled out or backfired spectacularly. "Fascinating," Archmage Modera muttered, reviewing scrolls of data. "Your essence contains elements we've never encountered. Not arcane, not fell, not even void corruption. Something entirely outside our magical taxonomy." "It's Hellfire," Johnny explained for the third time. "From making a deal with Mephisto." "Yes, but what is Hellfire in metaphysical terms?" another mage pressed. "How does it bypass all known magical defenses? What is the source of its—" A younger mage burst into the chamber, robes singed and face pale. "Archmages, the Lich King has been sighted. He's marching on Icecrown." Khadgar's face went grim. "That's impossible. The Lich King is sealed within Icecrown Citadel. He can't leave without—" "He's not leaving, Archmage. He's calling forth the Scourge. Every undead in Northrend is converging on the Frozen Throne. It's a full mobilization." Ghost Rider stood up. "This Lich King, he's bad news?" "The worst," Khadgar replied. "He commands an army of undead, millions strong. He's one of the greatest threats Azeroth has ever faced." Johnny's eyes flickered with hellfire. "Undead, huh? Those count as innocent, or—" "The Scourge are mindless, controlled by the Lich King's will," Modera explained. "They were once living people, raised into undeath against their will." "So the Lich King's the guilty one," Ghost Rider concluded. "Where's Icecrown?" "The frozen north of Northrend," Khadgar said. "But you can't just—" Ghost Rider was already walking toward the balcony. "I'll be back. Need to deal with this guy before he hurts more people." He stepped off the edge, and his motorcycle materialized beneath him in mid-air, already burning with hellfire. The mages rushed to the balcony's edge in time to see him streak northward, leaving a trail of fire across the sky. "Did he just—" Modera began. "Summon a vehicle out of thin air while falling, yes," Khadgar finished, pulling at his beard. "I don't think our usual magical theories apply here." At Icecrown Citadel, the Lich King Arthas Menethil sat upon the frozen throne, his armor of serenite and ice radiating cold that could freeze a man's blood in his veins. Before him, in the vast courtyard of his fortress, stood the Scourge. Tens of thousands of undead warriors, death knights, abominations, frost worms, and liches. An army capable of drowning the world in eternal winter. Arthas sensed the approaching presence before his minions did. Something that registered as both living and dead, mortal and eternal. Something that shouldn't exist. "My king," rasped Kel'Thuzad, the Archlich who served as his second in command. "I sense a disturbance. Something approaches from the south." "I know," Arthas replied, his voice the crack of breaking ice. "Let it come." Ghost Rider arrived like a comet of hellfire, crashing through the outer walls of Icecrown Citadel with enough force to send ice and stone exploding in all directions. He rode through the Scourge army, and wherever his wheels touched, hellfire spread. Undead soldiers burned. Their cursed existence ended not by holy light, but by the cleansing flames of vengeance. He came to a stop at the base of the stairs leading to the frozen throne. Arthas stood, Frostmourne in hand, the cursed rune blade thirsting for souls. The Lich King descended the stairs slowly, each footstep leaving frost in its wake. "You dare enter my domain, creature?" Arthas demanded. "I am the Lich King, master of death itself. I have extinguished the light of nations. I have raised armies from the ashes of fallen kingdoms. What are you but another soul to add to my collection?" Ghost Rider's skull ignited, flames roaring to life. "I'm the guy who's gonna make you pay for every innocent life you've taken." Arthas laughed, the sound like bones grinding together. "I have taken millions. Do you truly think you can make me answer for that?" "Yeah," Ghost Rider replied simply. The Lich King raised Frostmourne, and the temperature dropped 50 degrees in an instant. Ice spread from his position in a wave, flash freezing everything it touched. The ice reached Ghost Rider and shattered against him like glass against steel. "Interesting," Arthas mused. "You resist the cold of Northrend itself. Let's see how you handle this." He pointed Frostmourne at Ghost Rider, and the blade's true power activated. The rune blade could steal souls, rip them from living bodies, and consume them to fuel its dark power. The pull was irresistible, had claimed everyone from peasants to paladins. It reached out for Ghost Rider's essence, and found something it couldn't touch. The spirit of vengeance wasn't a soul, not in any traditional sense. It was a force, an embodiment of divine retribution that existed outside normal cosmic rules. Frostmourne's power slid off it like water off oil. Arthas's eyes widened behind his helm. "What are you?" "Your judgment," Ghost Rider replied. He moved faster than the Lich King could track, closing the distance in a heartbeat. His hand clamped around Arthas's helm, and the Penance Stare activated. The Lich King experienced it all. Every person he'd killed as a Death Knight. Every soul Frostmourne had consumed. Every civilian murdered during the Scourge's campaigns. Every moment of suffering caused by his undead armies across years of conquest. All of it compressed into a single, infinite moment of perfect understanding. Arthas Menethil screamed. The sound echoed across Icecrown. causing frost worms to crash from the sky and lesser undead to collapse as their master's will faltered. He screamed with the voices of everyone he'd killed, every soul trapped in frost morn, every victim of his ambition. Ghost Rider released him, and the Lich King fell to his knees. Frost morn clattered from nerveless fingers, the cursed blade's power disrupted by the hellfire that now burned through Arthas's armor. Guilty, Ghost Rider pronounced. The hellfire consumed the Lich King from within. His armor melted, his frozen flesh burned away, and the dark magic sustaining him unraveled. The thousands of souls trapped in Frostmourne were released in a blinding flash of light, finally free after years of torment. When the flames died, nothing remained but a pile of blackened armor. The frozen throne cracked, its power broken. Across Northrend, the Scourge fell dormant, the controlling will that animated them simply gone. Ghost Rider looked at the destruction around him and sighed. One stare again. Back in Stormwind, the gathered leaders debated the best course of action. Khadgar advocated for a cautious approach, building defenses before confronting N'Zoth. Tyrande Whisperwind, leader of the Night Elves, insisted on immediate action to prevent further corruption. The arguments grew heated, with faction leaders using Ghost Rider's presence as leverage in their political maneuvering. Johnny tuned them out. He'd heard enough politicians arguing to last several lifetimes. Instead, he focused on Sally, who was watching the proceedings with worried eyes. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "I'm just concerned. The old gods aren't like the demons or undead you've faced. They corrupt minds, twist reality itself. Even being near one can drive people mad." "Yeah, but they're evil, right? Guilty of crimes?" "The most guilty beings in Azeroth's history," Sally confirmed. "They've corrupted countless innocents, turned heroes into monsters, orchestrated atrocities spanning millennia." Ghost Rider's eyes flared. "Then they need to face judgment." Before anyone could respond, the sky above Stormwind split open. Not a portal, but a tear in reality itself, and through it poured madness given form. Tentacles of impossible geometry reached down from the void, each one covered in eyes that saw through to a person's deepest fears. The air filled with whispers that promised power, knowledge, corruption. "N'Zoth," Ysera gasped, her dragon form manifesting in instinctive defense. "He's manifesting directly, but that should be impossible. He's still imprisoned." "Not manifesting," Illidan corrected, his demonic eyes piercing through the illusions. "Projecting. This is merely his power reaching out, testing this anomaly." The tentacles converged on Ghost Rider's position. They didn't attack physically, but instead wove patterns in the air that rewrote local reality. The ground beneath Johnny's feet turned to water, then to eyes, then to teeth. The sky became down, gravity reversed. Colors gained texture, and sounds gained taste. Sally screamed as her perception of reality shattered. Around the square, mages and warriors collapsed, blood leaking from their eyes and ears as their minds struggled to process the impossible geometries. Ghost Rider stood unmoved in the center of the chaos, reality warping around him but not touching him. His skull ignited, flames burning away the false realities N'Zoth's power tried to impose. "Nice trick," he said, looking up at the tear in the sky. but I've seen worse. Hell showed me things that would make you look tame. 1,000 eyes focused on him at once. And Zoth's voice echoed directly into every mind present, bypassing physical sound entirely. Fascinating. You resist the madness through sheer existential defiance. But can you resist this? The old god's power shifted tactics. Instead of trying to corrupt Ghost Rider's reality, it reached for his past. Memories manifested around him, made physical and hostile. Every demon he'd failed to save people from. Every innocent who'd died because he arrived too late. Every mistake amplified and given form. Johnny saw his father, disappointed in what he'd become. His first love, screaming as demons dragged her away. The people he couldn't save, their accusing eyes fixed on him. "You are a failure," the manifestations whispered. A pathetic, cursed creature who pretends to dispense justice, but only spreads more suffering. Ghost Rider looked at the manifestations, then back up at the tear in reality. "Yeah, I've made mistakes. Plenty of them. But I'm still here, still fighting, still making the guilty pay." His flames intensified. "And you're about to join them." He jumped, and the motorcycle materialized beneath him again. He rode straight up, defying gravity, heading directly for the tear in reality wherein Zoth's presence was strongest. The old god's tentacles lashed at him, each one capable of ending worlds, but they couldn't touch the spirit of vengeance. Ghost Rider reached the tear and plunged through it. For a moment, he existed in a space between realities, wherein Zoth's true form writhed in its titan-forged prison. The old god was massive beyond comprehension, its body a constellation of eyes and mouths and writhing appendages that extended through multiple dimensions simultaneously. "You dare enter my realm?" N'Zoth's voice was everywhere and nowhere. "Here, I am God. Here, your petty flames cannot!" Ghost Rider's chain whipped out and wrapped around one of N'Zoth's countless eyes. He yanked hard, pulling himself toward the old god's central mass. Penance Stare. He locked eyes with N'Zoth, and the judgment began. The old god saw every being it had corrupted, every mind broken, every civilization destroyed, every moment of suffering caused by its machinations over millions of years. The weight of its crimes was so vast, so incomprehensibly massive, that even an entity existing partially outside reality couldn't escape it. N'Zoth screamed. The sound echoed across dimensions, causing earthquakes on Azeroth and ripples in the twisting nether. In the void itself, the Void Lords paused in their eternal scheming, sensing one of their greatest servants experiencing something impossible, genuine pain. Ghost Rider didn't stop. He pulled himself hand over hand along his chain, moving closer to N'Zoth's central consciousness. The old god's tentacles tried to stop him, but they burned on contact with his hellfire. "No!" N'Zoth's mental voice was breaking, fragmenting under the assault. "I am eternal. I have existed since before your universe knew light. You cannot." "Guilty," Ghost Rider pronounced. His fist, blazing with hellfire, punched directly into N'Zoth's central eye. The old god's scream intensified, reaching a crescendo that shattered minds across Azeroth. Then, impossibly, the screaming stopped. N'Zoth, the Corruptor, last of the imprisoned old gods, fragment of the Void Lords themselves, simply ended. Not destroyed in a way that would allow it to reform, not banished to return later, but fundamentally erased. The hellfire burned through its essence across all dimensions it occupied, severing its connection to the void itself. Ghost Rider fell back through the tear in reality, landing in Stormwind Square with enough force to crack the stones. His flames died down, revealing Johnny's human form once more. He looked disappointed. One punch again. Around him, those who had witnessed the event were silent. Ysera trembled, her ancient dragon mind struggling to process what she'd just seen. Khadgar had collapsed, his staff fallen from nerveless fingers. Even Illidan, who had gazed into the heart of the Legion, looked shaken. He killed an old god, Tyrande whispered. Not imprisoned it, not sealed it, but killed it. Permanently. Varian Rin found his voice first. The prophecies spoke of champions who would face the old gods in the end times, after long campaigns and tremendous sacrifice. They never mentioned a single warrior ending one in minutes. Ghost Rider shrugged. He was guilty of a lot of crimes. Judgment was pretty straightforward. Straightforward, Khadgar repeated, laughing with an edge of hysteria. He calls ending an old god straightforward. Sally approached Johnny cautiously, relief and awe warring on her face. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Just, he sighed. I was hoping the old god would be tougher, really make me work for it. Before anyone could respond to that casually devastating statement, another presence made itself known. This one didn't tear reality or corrupt minds. It simply appeared, stepping out of empty air as if walking through an invisible door. The figure was humanoid, but clearly not of Azeroth. His skin was blue-gray, marked with intricate tattoos that glowed with fell energy. He wore the armor of the Burning Legion, but unlike the chaotic designs of demons, his was elegant, purposeful. Most striking were his eyes, which burned with green fire that saw through all deception. I am Sargeras, the figure announced, his voice carrying the weight of eons. The Dark Titan, creator and commander of the Burning Legion. Every leader present went rigid with fear. Sargeras was the Legion's ultimate leader, a fallen titan whose power dwarfed even the old gods. He had burned countless worlds, shattered pantheons, and waged war against existence itself. This is merely an avatar, Sargeras continued. A fraction of my power projected from the seat of the Pantheon, where my true form is imprisoned. But it is enough to speak with you, Spirit of Vengeance. Ghost Rider crossed his arms. What do you want? To understand you, Sargeras replied. I have existed for millions of years. I have witnessed the Void Lord's corruption, seen the inevitability of entropy. I have made it my mission to burn all life to prevent its corruption by the Void. Yet you simply punch evil, and it ceases to exist. Pretty much. You destroyed Archimonde, one of my greatest commanders. You ended the Lich King, who was meant to serve as a weapon against the Void. You erased N'Zoth, achieving in moments what I have failed to do in millennia of crusading. The Avatar leaned forward. Join me. With your power added to the Legion, we could finally end the Void's threat permanently. Johnny shook his head. Not interested. You burn innocent people along with the guilty. That makes you guilty too. Sargeras's eyes flared. I burn worlds to save the universe from corruption. Yeah, I've heard that before. The ends justify the means, necessary sacrifices, all that. Still doesn't make it right. You naive fool, the Dark Titan growled. You cannot comprehend the stakes, the cosmic scale of the threat we face. The void will consume all, if we do not. Ghost Rider's skull ignited. I said no. The avatar of Sargeras raised his hand, and fell fire gathered around it, enough power to level continents. Then you will be cleansed along with this world. If you will not aid in the universe's salvation, you are part of the corruption that must be burned away. He unleashed the attack. A column of fell fire wider than Stormwind's walls, hot enough to burn through a planet's crust, compressed to a single devastating beam. The heat was so intense that stones began melting 100 yards away, metal armor glowing red on distant soldiers. The beam hit Ghost Rider directly. When the fire cleared, Johnny stood exactly where he'd been, not even singed. He looked at Sargeras and tilted his head. My turn. He didn't use a named technique, didn't build up power, just punched the avatar. His fist connected with the Dark Titan's chest, and the avatar shattered like glass. Fell energy scattered in all directions, the fragment of Sargeras' consciousness within it dissipating with a sound like distant thunder. In the seat of the Pantheon, where Sargeras' true form was imprisoned by his brother Titans, the Dark Titan gasped. His avatar hadn't just been destroyed, it had been judged. Even through that tiny fragment of his being, he had felt the weight of every life he'd taken, every world he'd burned, every innocent destroyed in his crusade. For the first time in millions of years, Sargeras felt doubt. Back in Stormwind, Ghost Rider's flames died down once more. He looked around at the assembled leaders, all of whom were now regarding him with something approaching religious awe. Anyone else want to try recruiting me? He asked. Silence. Good. So about that portal home. The next 3 days were spent in frantic preparation. Khadgar coordinated with the Void Elves, the Titan's remaining keepers, and even the dragon aspects to create a stable dimensional portal. They worked around the clock, combining magics that had never been meant to interact, pushing the boundaries of what was theoretically possible. Johnny spent the time helping where he could. A demon incursion here, a void manifestation there, all dealt with quickly and efficiently. He also spent time with Sally, who had become the closest thing to a friend he'd made in Azeroth. You know, she said one evening, as they sat on Stormwind's walls, watching the sunset, it's going to be strange when you're gone. You've only been here a few weeks, but you've changed everything. Changed it how? Johnny asked. You've shown us that there are powers beyond what we imagined, that the great threats we've struggled against for generations can be overcome, that evil, no matter how cosmic its scale, can still be judged and punished. She smiled sadly. You've given people hope, but also made them question everything they thought they knew about power and justice. I just did what I always do, punish the guilty. I know. That's what makes it so extraordinary. For you, it's just what you do. For us. She trailed off, looking at the city below where people were already building more shrines to the burning rider. Johnny followed her gaze. I'm not a god or a saint. I'm just cursed. Maybe, Sally replied. But curses can still do good, even if that wasn't their purpose. On the third day, Khadgar announced the portal was ready. They'd set up the ritual in a specially prepared chamber deep beneath Dalaran, warded with every protective spell known to Azeroth's mages. The entire process was delicate, potentially catastrophic if anything went wrong. We've calculated the dimensional coordinates based on residual energy signatures from your arrival, Khadgar explained, gesturing to the massive array of crystals and rune circles that filled the chamber. The portal should open directly to your Earth, specifically to the location you departed from. Should? Johnny repeated. Dimensional travel is not an exact science, the Void Elf leader, who had introduced himself as Magister Umbric, admitted. There's a margin of error, but we believe it to be minimal. How minimal? Best case, you arrive exactly where you left. Worst case, well, let's just say we've taken every precaution to prevent you from materializing inside a star. Ghost Rider sighed. Great. So when do we start? Now, if you're ready, Khadgar replied. The cosmic alignment necessary for stable transit won't last long. A crowd had gathered to witness the departure. Alliance and Horde leaders stood side by side, setting aside their eternal conflict for this moment. The dragon aspects observed from their various forms. Even representatives from the more isolationist races, the Night Elves, Blood Elves, and Tauren had come. Johnny stood in the center of the ritual circle, Sally nearby with tears in her eyes. He'd said his goodbyes to the others, accepted their thanks, which still made him uncomfortable, and was ready to go home. Initiating the sequence, Khadgar announced. The crystals began to glow, each one thrumming with contained power. The runes blazed to life, their ancient words of power resonating through multiple dimensions simultaneously. The air in the chamber grew thick, reality becoming malleable as the barriers between worlds thinned. A point of light appeared above the ritual circle, expanding slowly into a portal. Through it, Johnny could see glimpses of his Earth, the city he'd left behind, normal sky with normal clouds and normal buildings. Home. The portal is stable, Magister Umbric confirmed, sweat beading on his blue skin from the strain of maintaining the spell. But it won't last long. You need to go now. Johnny stepped toward the portal, then paused. He looked back at Sally, at Khadgar, at all the people he'd met during his time here. Thanks for helping me get back, he said simply. Thank you, Varian replied, speaking for all assembled, for everything you've done for our world. Ghost Rider was about to step through when reality convulsed. The portal flickered and distorted, and through its surface burst a figure that made even the assembled heroes recoil in horror. It was a demon, but unlike any the Legion commanded. This one was primordial, ancient beyond measure, its form constantly shifting between states as if it couldn't decide what shape to take. It had Mephisto's signature all over it, the same fell corruption that had first cursed Johnny Blaze. Did you really think I'd let you escape, Johnny? The demon's voice was Mephisto's, echoing from 1,000 mouths. I opened that first portal deliberately, sent you to this dimension to test its defenses. And now that you've conveniently eliminated its greatest protections, I can finally add Azeroth to my collection of conquered worlds. The demon's form stabilized into something massive and terrible. It stood 20 feet tall, wrapped in chains that leaked hellfire, its head a twisted amalgamation of skull and flame that mockingly mirrored Ghost Rider's appearance. I am Mephisto, Lord of Hell, Duke of Lies, Ancient of Ancients, the demon proclaimed. And I have been waiting for this moment since the universe was young. Behind Mephisto, more demons began pouring through the corrupted portal. Not Legion demons, but entities from Johnny's dimension, each one twisted by Mephisto's power. They filled the chamber, overwhelming the protective wards through sheer numbers. "Everyone back!" Khadgar shouted, raising his staff to cast defensive spells. Mephisto laughed. "Your mortal magic cannot stop what comes, old man. I have studied this realm through Johnny's time here. I know its weaknesses, its limits, and unlike the pathetic threats you've faced before, I am eternal. I am inevitable. I am really annoying," Ghost Rider interrupted, his skull blazing to life. "I was going home, Mephisto. You had to ruin that." "Oh, Johnny," Mephisto cooed mockingly. "You sound upset. Tell me, has it been frustrating? Being so powerful that nothing in this world can challenge you? Always ending fights in one punch, one stare, one casual display of force?" Johnny didn't respond, but his flames intensified. "That's the real curse, isn't it?" Mephisto continued, circling like a predator. "Not the flames, not the transformation, but the loneliness of being unbeatable. Well, let me give you what you've been craving. A real fight." Mephisto's form erupted in hellfire. The temperature in the chamber spiked to levels that turned the air itself to plasma. Protective wards shattered, mages screaming as their enchantments burned away. The demon's power was different from anything Azeroth had faced, not bound by its rules, not limited by its cosmic structure. Ghost Rider met the Hellfire head-on. The two sources of infernal power collided in the center of the chamber, neither giving ground. Flames swirled around them in a vortex that reached to the ceiling and began melting through stone. "Finally," Mephisto laughed. "Hellfire against hellfire. The cursed versus the cursor. Let's see which of us burns brightest." He lashed out with chains that matched Ghost Rider's own, the weapons clashing in showers of sparks. They moved faster than mortal eyes could follow, each strike powerful enough to split mountains. The chamber began to collapse around them, forcing everyone to flee. In the chaos of the battle, Sally was separated from the main group. She found herself backed against a wall as one of Mephisto's demons, a twisted thing of smoke and malice, advanced on her. She raised her hands to cast a holy spell, but knew it wouldn't be enough. The demon lunged. Ghost Rider appeared between them. Catching the demon by the throat, his Penance Stare activated, and the creature shrieked before dissolving into ash. He looked at Sally, human face showing through the flames for just a moment. "Get out of here, all of you. This is my fight." "But," Sally began. "Go!" The command was absolute, carrying the weight of the spirit of Vengeance's authority. She ran, joining the evacuation as Khadgar and the other mages desperately tried to get everyone to safety. Behind them, the battle between Ghost Rider and Mephisto intensified, their powers tearing at reality itself. "You care about them!" Mephisto cackled, firing a blast of hellfire that Ghost Rider barely dodged. "The great spirit of vengeance, who exists only to punish evil, has developed feelings for these mortals." "They're innocent," Ghost Rider replied, his chain whipping out to wrap around Mephisto's arm. "That makes them worth protecting." "Innocent?" Mephisto yanked his arm free, the chain shattering. "There's no such thing. Every being in existence has darkness in their heart, seeds of evil waiting to sprout. That's why my curse works so well on you, Johnny. You're not punishing the guilty. You're punishing everyone, because everyone is guilty of something." Ghost Rider charged forward, fist blazing. "Maybe, but some are more guilty than others." His punch connected with Mephisto's face, and the demon actually staggered back. It was the first time Johnny had struck something that didn't immediately disintegrate or die. Mephisto touched his jaw, feeling the burning impact, and grinned. Yes, this is what I wanted to see. The spirit of vengeance, finally challenged, finally pushed. Show me your true power, Johnny Blaze. They clashed again, and this time the force of their collision shattered the chamber completely. Stone and earth exploded outward as they fell through multiple levels of Dalaran's structure, still fighting. They crashed through the city's shields, fell from the floating metropolis entirely, and hit the ground in a forest miles below. Trees evaporated in the heat of their battle. The ground cracked and buckled as hellfire spread in all directions. Animals fled in terror from the two clashing titans of flame and fury. Mephisto wrapped his chains around Ghost Rider's neck, pulling tight. I've fought for millennia, Johnny. I've broken gods, corrupted saints, destroyed entire pantheons. What makes you think you can defeat me? Ghost Rider grabbed the chains and pulled, yanking Mephisto off balance. Because unlike you, I'm not doing this for power or conquest. He slammed Mephisto into the ground hard enough to create a crater. I'm doing this because you're guilty. He activated the Penance Stare, locking eyes with his tormentor. Mephisto saw it all. Every evil deed, every lie, every soul corrupted over eons of existence. The Demon Lord experienced the suffering he'd caused, compressed into a single moment of perfect judgment. But Mephisto was ancient, and he'd prepared for this. With a scream of defiance, he turned the Penance Stare back on Ghost Rider, forcing Johnny to experience every moment of guilt he carried, every person he'd failed to save, every mistake, amplified 1,000-fold. They stood locked together, each trying to break the other's will, hellfire spiraling around them in a column visible for miles. Back in Dalaran, now hovering at a safe distance, the mages watched through scrying spells. They're evenly matched, Khadgar breathed. I didn't think anything could match the spirit of vengeance, but Mephisto is his progenitor, the source of his curse. Can Ghost Rider win? Varian asked. Before anyone could answer, Sally stepped forward. She'd been clutching something during the evacuation, a small medallion she'd given Ghost Rider, which he'd returned to her before the battle. On impulse, she raised it and began to pray. Others joined her. Priests of the light, shamans calling to the elements, druids reaching out to nature, even warlocks bending their dark powers toward helping rather than harming. The entire population of Dalaran, both Alliance and Horde, joined in a unified prayer for the being who had saved them all. In the crater below, Ghost Rider felt it. A surge of power that wasn't his own, drawn from the faith and hope of an entire world. It wasn't enough to overcome Mephisto directly, but it reminded him of something important. He wasn't alone anymore. With a roar that shook the heavens, Ghost Rider broke the deadlock. His flames intensified beyond anything he'd shown before, burning so bright they turned from red to white, to something beyond the visible spectrum. The hellfire transformed, no longer just burning evil, but actively converting it, purifying corruption through sheer righteous fury. No! Mephisto screamed. This isn't possible! You can't use faith against me! You're cursed by me, bound by my power! I'm bound by a curse to punish evil, Ghost Rider replied, his voice carrying harmonics from every being supporting him. But who said I can't accept help? His fist, blazing with purified hellfire and backed by the combined will of Azeroth, punched Mephisto one more time. This time, it was decisive. Mephisto's form cracked like glass. The Demon Lord's carefully constructed body, His avatar in this reality shattered into fragments. His essence tried to retreat, to escape back to his own dimension, but Ghost Rider's chain whipped out and caught him. "Guilty!" Ghost Rider pronounced and pulled. Mephisto's essence was dragged back, held fast by chains empowered by an entire world's faith. The Demon Lord experienced the Penance Stare again, but this time amplified by the suffering he'd caused across multiple realities, all of it witnessed by the beings he'd tried to conquer. The judgment was absolute. When it ended, Mephisto was gone. Not killed, not banished, but diminished. His power in this reality was broken, his avatar destroyed, his connection to Azeroth severed so completely he'd never be able to return. Ghost Rider stood in the center of the burning crater, his flames slowly dying down. The chain released its grip, and he transformed back to Johnny Blaze, exhausted in a way he hadn't felt since the curse first claimed him. Sally was the first to reach him, followed by Khadgar and the others. She caught him as he stumbled, supporting his weight. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually beat him." "We did it," Johnny corrected, looking up at the floating city where thousands still watched. "Couldn't have done it alone." Khadgar approached cautiously. "The portal you came through is destabilizing. Mephisto's corruption damaged its structure, and we don't have the power to repair it." Johnny's face fell. "So I can't go home?" "I didn't say that." The Archmage pulled out a crystal that glowed with stored magic. "While you were fighting, we captured a fragment of the dimensional breach. It contains enough energy and coordinate data for one more portal, but only one. We can send you home, but it will take time to prepare the ritual again." "How long?" "Hours, perhaps a day." Johnny nodded, too tired to argue. "Okay, let's get started then." The reconstruction of the portal took 18 hours. During that time, Johnny rested in Stormwind, accepting the thanks of people he'd saved, and trying not to think about how much he'd miss this world. It had been frustrating at times, yes, with its constant crises and overwhelming enemies that turned out to be disappointingly easy to defeat. But the people here were good, fighting against impossible odds with courage and determination. When the portal was finally ready, the entire city turned out to see him off. Sally stood beside him at the portal's edge, trying not to cry. "I never thanked you properly," she said. "For everything." "You don't need to thank me. Just keep fighting the good fight." "Will you remember us?" Johnny smiled. "How could I forget? This place might have been weird, but it gave me something I didn't have back home." "What's that?" "A real challenge." He glanced at the portal, then back at her. "And some pretty good people." The portal blazed to life, showing Johnny's Earth on the other side. He could see the city where he'd left, seemingly unchanged despite all the time that had passed here. "The portal's stable," Khadgar announced, "but you need to leave now before the structure collapses." Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze, took one last look at Azeroth, at the people who had fought beside him, the world he'd saved, the friends he'd made. Then he stepped through the portal. Reality twisted, compressed, and released him on Earth. He stumbled onto a normal street, in a normal city, under a normal sky. Behind him, the portal collapsed with a sound like distant thunder, severing the connection between worlds. Johnny looked around, confirming he was really home. Same buildings, same cars, same ordinary world, where the most exciting thing to happen was usually a supervillain attack or two. He pulled out the medallion Sally had given him. the one bearing symbols of the light, of faith and hope. He tucked it carefully into his jacket pocket, next to his heart. At least the monsters here might give me a challenge, he muttered, climbing onto his motorcycle. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. After facing old gods and Titan-forged demons, after punching reality-warping entities and burning away cosmic corruption, what could Earth's villains possibly offer? Maybe that was okay, though. Maybe he didn't need every fight to be a challenge. Maybe it was enough to just keep doing what he did. Punish evil, protect the innocent, be the spirit of vengeance. As Johnny Blaze rode off into the city, heading toward whatever crisis needed him next, he couldn't help but smile. Somewhere out there, in a reality separated by dimensional barriers and cosmic rules, was a world where he'd been not just a spirit of vengeance, but a hero. And who knew? Khadgar had mentioned the barriers between realities were thin in places, especially now that they'd been breached twice. If something threatened Azeroth again, if the people there really needed him, well, he'd find a way back. Heroes always did. The end. Word count, 10,238 words, Dalaran. The Kirin Tor's detection spells went haywire. Khadgar rushed to the scrying pools and saw the impossible. Icecrown Citadel was burning with fires that weren't frost or arcane or feel, and at its center, the Lich King's presence had simply vanished from existence. "Titans preserve us," he whispered. He actually did it. Word spread faster than wildfire. The Lich King, one of the greatest threats Azeroth had ever faced, had been defeated by the Burning Rider, not after a prolonged campaign by the greatest heroes of the world, not after tremendous sacrifice and loss, but in a single confrontation that lasted minutes. Churches of the Light held services debating whether Ghost Rider was a divine agent. The Argent Crusade sent envoys to study him. The Alliance and Horde leadership both called emergency councils to discuss what this new power meant for the balance of their eternal conflict. Johnny Blaze just wanted someone to figure out how to send him home. He sat in a tavern in Stormwind City, the Alliance capital, nursing a mug of something the locals called ale, but tasted nothing like beer from his world. Across from him sat a young woman named Sally Whitemane, a priestess of the light, who had appointed herself his guide after he'd saved her from a demon attack in the Plague Lands. "You don't seem happy," she observed. "You've saved thousands of lives. People are calling you a hero." Johnny shrugged. "I'm not a hero. I'm just cursed to punish evil. And honestly, the bad guys here aren't that impressive. The Lich King, that Archimond demon, they all talk big but go down in one shot." "One shot?" Sally repeated incredulously. "The Lich King had an army of millions. He'd been terrorizing the world for years." "Yeah, but he wasn't actually that strong," Johnny replied, looking disappointed. "I was hoping for a real challenge, you know? Someone who could actually hurt me, make me work for it." Before Sally could respond, the tavern door burst open. A royal guard staggered in, armor scorched and face pale with terror. "The Burning Rider! Thank the light! You must come quickly!" Ghost Rider stood, suddenly alert. "What's wrong?" "Deathwing," the guard gasped. "The aspect of death has returned. He's tearing the world apart." Outside, the sky had turned crimson. A massive roar shook the foundations of Stormwind itself, loud enough to crack windows and send people fleeing in panic. Through the clouds descended a dragon of impossible size, its body plated in elementium armor barely containing the molten fury within. Deathwing the Destroyer had returned, and his very presence was ripping Azeroth apart. Earthquakes split the city streets. Buildings collapsed. The harbor waters boiled as magma erupted from cracks in the earth. Johnny stepped into the street, looking up at the massive dragon. Deathwing was easily 100 meters long, his wingspan blotting out the sun. Molten blood leaked from between his armor plates, each drop causing explosions where it hit the ground. "Insects!" Deathwing's voice was like tectonic plates grinding together. "I am the aspect of death. I am the destroyer. I will burn this world to ash and remake it in my image." Ghost Rider's head ignited. "Another one with a god complex, huh?" He jumped, and somehow found purchase in the air itself, running up toward the dragon as if climbing invisible stairs. Deathwing noticed the approaching figure and laughed, the sound causing another earthquake. "You dare challenge me, mortal? I am empowered by the old gods themselves. I am destruction incarnate." The dragon opened its maw and unleashed its breath weapon. Not fire, but raw cataclysm, power drawn from the elemental planes themselves compressed into a beam of annihilation. It had destroyed mountains, boiled seas, erased entire regions from existence. Ghost Rider ran straight into it. The breath weapon washed over him, around him, and dissipated harmlessly. He continued running up the invisible stairs, chains whipping free from his jacket. "Impossible!" Deathwing roared. "Nothing can withstand." Ghost Rider's chain wrapped around the dragon's neck. He yanked hard, and Deathwing's head whipped around involuntarily, bringing one massive eye into direct line of sight. Penance Stare. The dragon aspect saw it all. Every innocent killed in his mad quest to destroy Azeroth. Every realm burned. Every life snuffed out. The weight of 10,000 years of atrocities, amplified by the old god's corruption, all of it flooding back through his consciousness at once. Deathwing the Destroyer, aspect of death, empowered by the old gods themselves, screamed in pure agony. Ghost Rider released the chain and drew back his fist. "You're guilty of a lot." His punch connected with Deathwing's armored jaw. The Elementium armor, forged by goblin engineers to contain the dragon's molten power, shattered like pottery. The force of the impact sent Deathwing spinning through the air, scales and armor plates flying off in all directions. The dragon crashed into the mountains outside Stormwind, the impact creating a crater visible from miles away. He tried to rise, wings beating weakly, but Ghost Rider was already there, falling from the sky like a meteor. Guilty. He landed on Deathwing's chest with both feet. The hellfire spread instantly, not burning the dragon's flesh but consuming the corruption within. The old god's influence, the madness that had driven Deathwing for millennia, the very essence of his destructive nature, all of it burned away by the spirit of vengeance's judgment. When it was over, Deathwing lay still. Not dead, but purified. The corruption that had transformed Neltharion, the Earth Warder, into the Destroyer finally cleansed. The dragon's eyes, previously mad with chaos, cleared. He looked at Ghost Rider with something approaching gratitude before his massive body relaxed into unconsciousness. Ghost Rider's flames died down, revealing Johnny's human face once more. He looked at the fallen dragon and sighed. "One punch again. Well, one punch and a stare." Below, in Stormwind, people emerged from their hiding places to see the impossible. The Burning Rider stood atop Deathwing's unconscious form, having defeated in minutes what would have taken the world's greatest heroes a coordinated campaign to achieve. The worship began in earnest then. People fell to their knees, not in fear, but in reverence. They chanted his name, built shrines, declared him the savior sent by the Titans themselves. Children were given toy motorcycles that sparked with toy flames. Artists painted murals of the Burning Rider facing down demons and dragons. Johnny hated every second of it. "I'm not a saint," he told Sally for the 100th time, as they walked through Stormwind's cathedral district, where a new shrine dedicated to him was already under construction. "I'm just cursed." "Tell that to the thousands of people whose lives you've saved," she replied gently. "Whether you want it or not, you've become a symbol of hope." Before Johnny could respond, reality rippled. A portal of swirling shadow and purple energy materialized in the cathedral square, and through it stepped beings that made even Ghost Rider pause. They were tall, elegant creatures with skin in shades of purple and blue, their features sharp and alien. They wore elaborate armor that seemed to shift between states of matter, and their eyes glowed with arcane power. Most disturbing were the tentacles that occasionally writhed around their forms, as if they weren't entirely stable in physical reality. "Void elves," Sally breathed, backing away. "But they shouldn't be here. They operate on the edges of our reality, studying the void." The lead void elf stepped forward, his voice carrying harmonics that hurt to hear. "We are not here to threaten, merely to observe. Our studies detected a massive disruption in the cosmic balance. The Lich King unmade, Deathwing purified, the Legion forces scattered. All by a single entity that exists outside the normal flow of fate." He focused on Ghost Rider. "You are an anomaly. You don't belong in this reality's pattern. The void whispers about you, confused and frightened. Even the old gods stir uneasily in their prisons, sensing something they cannot comprehend." Johnny crossed his arms. "So what do you want?" "To understand," the Void Elf replied. "You wield power that transcends our magical frameworks. You exist in a state of living death that defies the Shadowlands themselves. We wish to study you." "Not interested." "We could help you return to your reality," the Void Elf pressed. "Our understanding of the Void allows us to perceive the spaces between dimensions. We might find the way home you seek." That got Johnny's attention. "You're serious?" "Quite. In exchange for allowing us to conduct some harmless observations." A different kind of portal opened, this one blazing with holy light. Through it stepped a massive figure in golden armor, easily 8 feet tall, his presence radiating power that made the Void Elves hiss and retreat. Tyre, a Titan Keeper, had manifested directly into the mortal realm. "The Void Elves will make no bargains with this being," Tyre's voice boomed like thunder. "He is touched by forces beyond even the Titan's understanding. To tamper with him could unravel the very fabric of our reality. The Titans do not dictate our actions," the Void Elf leader replied coldly. "Perhaps not," a new voice interjected. A third portal opened, this one made of swirling green mist. Through it stepped Ysera, the green dragon aspect, her form shimmering between dragon and elf. "But when the aspects agree with the Titans, you would be wise to listen. This being has already upset the balance by purifying Deathwing. We cannot allow him to become a pawn in your experiments." More portals opened. Leaders from across Azeroth were arriving. drawn by the concentration of cosmic power. Thrall appeared with the Horde Council. King Varian Rin arrived with Alliance forces. Even Illidan Stormrage, the betrayer himself, stepped through a Feel portal to observe. "Enough," Ghost Rider said, and something in his tone made every powerful being present fall silent. "I don't care about your politics or your cosmic balance or whatever. I just want to go home." "And we want to help you," Khadgar said, approaching through the crowd. "We've been analyzing the dimensional breach that brought you here. Combined with the knowledge the Void Elves possess about spaces between realities, and the Titans' understanding of cosmic architecture, we believe we can open a portal to your Earth." Johnny perked up. "Really? How long will that take?" "Days, perhaps weeks. We need to stabilize the breach point, calculate the exact dimensional coordinates, and ensure the portal won't collapse mid-transit." "So I just wait around until then? Unless you'd prefer to help us deal with the remaining threats to Azeroth," Varian suggested carefully. "The Legion still operates in the twisting nether. The old gods stir in their prisons. N'Zoth, the final imprisoned old god, has been gaining power." "The old gods," the Void Elf interrupted, "are beings of cosmic horror that exist partially outside reality. They corrupted Deathwing, created the Naga, and seek to remake Azeroth in their image. N'Zoth is the most cunning and dangerous of them all." Ghost Rider's eyes flickered with hellfire. "Beings of cosmic horror, huh? Are they stronger than the dragons and leeches I've fought?" "Immeasurably so," Ysera replied grimly. "They are fragments of the Void Lords, entities that predate the Titans themselves. Their power operates on scales beyond mortal comprehension." For the first time since arriving in Azeroth, Johnny smiled. "Now that sounds interesting." In the depths of the ocean, beneath leagues of dark water, in a prison forged by the Titans themselves, N'Zoth, the Corruptor, stirred him. The old god's form defied description, a mass of tentacles and eyes and mouths that existed in dimensions mortal minds couldn't perceive. It had waited for millennia, slowly working at its bonds, corrupting minds, spreading madness. And now it sensed the anomaly. The being that shouldn't exist, that operated outside the cosmic rules N'Zoth had mastered over eons. The spirit of vengeance. Curious, N'Zoth's voice echoed through the minds of its servants across Azeroth, a psychic whisper that drove some instantly mad. A new player enters the board. Not of the light, not of the void, not of any force I have catalogued in my eternal vigil. Deep in the void-touched temple of Ni-Alotha, N'Zoth's most powerful servants gathered. Faceless ones, beings of pure void energy, wearing rough approximations of humanoid form. N'Zoth generals, creatures that had shattered the minds of dragon aspects. They knelt before their master's presence, awaiting commands. "Bring him to me," N'Zoth commanded. "This spirit of vengeance, I would gaze upon him with all my eyes, plumb the depths of his existence, and if necessary, end him." The servants bowed and departed, slipping through portals of shadow to enact their master's will.